Welcome in to another episode of Home Field Advantage. Hope you're having a great week wherever you may be across our great country or our great land. My name is Will Highland. I'm recording on February 4th, 2026. I appreciate you tuning in to the program here. I had planned to have Cam Chiesa here to discuss all things Patriots, Super Bowl 59, 60, whatever we're at this point. I had planned to do all of that tonight. Unfortunately, Cam couldn't make it. Diesel and I are going to try and do Odd Man Rush next week prior to the Olympics. But for today, I'm just flying solo as I record today. And one of the things I'm struggling with as it comes to Super Bowl 60, right, is the narrative forming, right? It kind of seems odd, right? For most of my life, the times when the Patriots made it to the Super Bowl, there was a clear narrative, right? Even last year, the narrative was, well, what's Mahomes ranking all time if he wins three in a row, stuff like that, right? Um, and we don't have a lot of that this year, right? There's not. It kind of reminds me of the Bengals Rams year. Like there's not a big. I guess even with that one, it was can Stafford win a Super Bowl. With this one, it's a lot of talk about Sam Darnold or Clint Kubiak or the coaching and Mike Vrabel and that kind of stuff. Drake May, is his shoulder hurt? Like there's a lot of narrative farming going on at Radio Row and throughout the media ecosystem this week as I've been consuming it. And you know, I'm going to try not to let that impact when I make my game pick, right? Um, but it's hard not to. It's hard not to listen to the noise, right? Like we have 2 weeks of noise, right? There have been some distractions with the Olympics coming up. You have the Stadium Series in the NHL. You have the NBA trade deadline, and there's been some action, right? Anthony Davis traded today. The Olympics starting on Friday. That kind of thing has been going on, but the narrative farming, as the kids use the word aura farming, the narrative farming around Super Bowl 60 has been interesting to follow. And before I get into any of that, I do wanna talk about Robert Kraft and Bill Belichick not getting into the Hall of Fame. Um, I don't remember if I've touched on the Belichick not getting into the Hall of Fame thing or not. I honestly don't remember. Um, I know a couple weeks ago I talked about the Baseball Hall of Fame, and well, I mean, if you're going to talk about narratives, I think the fact that that Robert Kraft and Bill Belichick aren't in the Hall of Fame on the first ballot is embarrassing. I'm trying to take off my Patriots hat here as I analyze this this situation, and I find it like astonishing that the the immediate outpouring from the media ecosystem when Bill Belichick or Robert Kraft, and both of them now, aren't included in the Hall of Fame on the first ballot is, well, they deserve it. Oh my gosh, they deserve it. There's nobody more deserving. I mean, think about what Bill Belichick did to the league, right? Like we can relitigate Spygate and Deflategate. I'm not really interested in doing that. Yeah, I really I find the entire story to be just like a major nothing burger. Both stories. I mean, I don't know. Like I just find them both to be nauseating to think about. Like over the years we've been in New England, we just grown to just try and try and move past them. But like, think about what Bill Belichick did for the league in terms of like all of these guys that worked under him that got jobs, right? All of these players that played for him that have gone on to become like major voices in the game. I think about Mike Vrabel, right? Coach right now. You think about Rodney Harrison, who's a major voice in the game. Obviously, Tom Brady, a major voice in the game. Um, You just look around the McCourty brothers, especially Devin McCourty, huge voice in the game of football, an important voice in the game. And so all these guys who play for Bill Belichick, um, you know, these guys deserve their flowers, right? Julian Edelman and Rob Gronkowski, huge voices of the game as well, employed by Fox. Um, yeah, I mean, these guys all studied the NFL under Bill Belichick and won championships under Bill Belichick. Um, and then if you think about Robert Kraft, I mean, to take over a Patriot franchise that was a joke and turn it into the one most valuable in the entire world, as well as the fact that he helped build Gillette Stadium without a single dollar of taxpayer funded um, enterprise, and the way he systematically took over the Patriots and made a local economy of Foxborough completely revolve around the football team. I mean, it's astonishing what he's done with the media, right? In negotiating these TV deals on behalf of the league and whatnot. So it's a complete joke that neither one of these guys got in on their first ballot. And it's not just because I'm a Patriots bozo. It's because if you're going to have a Hall of Fame, all of these Hall of Fames, I don't follow the Hall of Fame in basketball or even the Hall of Fame in hockey, despite being a huge NHL fan close enough. But like, especially the Baseball Hall of Fame and the Football Hall of Fame are becoming just so corrupt that it is almost impossible to wrap your head around um, these processes. It's ridiculous. Like the fact that all these 85-year-old guys with grudges are deciding who gets into these establishments that fans care about. Fans care about these things. Um, and they're just being held hostage by, grumpy old journalists. It's dumb. So anyway, I'm gonna move on from that. But what they've done for the franchise should be lauded, and eventually I think it will be. Okay, now speaking of franchises, and turnarounds, right? Obviously, the Seahawks have had a major turnaround as well. They're in Super Bowl 60. Um, it wasn't that long ago on this program that I was advocating for them to tank to draft Caleb Williams, or think about 2 years ago they move on from Pete Carroll, who won them a Super Bowl. Similarly, within a week, the Patriots had moved on from Bill Belichick. And now both of them, two years later, are both of those franchises are in the Super Bowl. And the coaches they let go, the Raiders fired Pete Carroll, and the um, Patriots former coach Bill Belichick. The only press he gets nowadays is bad press. Um, so the turnaround that those two franchises have made after letting go of long-term coaches and taking risks on quarterbacks, right? Like New England, I'm not saying they took a risk with Drake May, but they certainly took a risk in um in really not bringing in like a real veteran backup this year. Like, no disrespect to Josh Dobbs, but they were they were pretty much banking on the fact that this guy's going to be our franchise quarterback. And similarly, the Seahawks were, yeah, we kind of know that Sam Darnold has bounced around the league, and like he had a really good year with Minnesota. Some people think that might be a fluke or a product of Kevin O'Connell or Justin Jefferson or something, but we believe in Sam Darnold, and we're going to pay him to come play for us. So both teams took a risk on their quarterbacks. Both teams brought in a new head coach, as I mentioned a few seconds ago. And so they find themselves in the Super Bowl when a lot of people would have picked the Eagles and Chiefs, or the Packers and Chiefs, like I did, or the Ravens and the 49ers or somebody. Like, there was a lot more, or the Lions or something, or Lions and Bills. Like, there were a lot more teams that NFL fans thought would be in the Super Bowl, but instead we have Seattle and New England. There's been a lot of comparison to Super Bowl 49. I don't think it could be any different. Like, you can point out that Seattle has a really good defense, um, or that New England, has a solid coach quarterback tandem, or any of these, situations, or the fact that it's being played in out west. Like, there are a handful of like minor coincidences, But to me, these games couldn't be any different. The expectations around these franchises, as I as I've sort of laid out, couldn't be any more different than they were in 2014. For example, back then, the Seahawks were trying to repeat, right? The Seahawks are trying to build their own dynasty. They had the Legion of Boom secondary. They had Marshawn Lynch and Russell Wilson. Of course, they had Carroll. Patriots were trying to win a Super Bowl after already losing two in the previous decade, right? They hadn't won a Super Bowl in a decade. It had been a long time, and New England was trying to get back to the mountaintop, and Brady was trying to kind of rewrite his legacy. Because remember, talking about Spygate and Deflategate, New England had not won a Super Bowl since those two scandals, and Deflategate had literally just happened, right? So, again, kind of a nothing burger considering they won just as many Super Bowls after than before. Um, but again, I'm not going to go down that road. But you think about the franchise expectations for this week. If New England wins the Super Bowl, it's hey, this is the start of a new dynasty. This is the start of Drake May and Mike Vrabel Dynasty 3.0. Uh, if they lose the game, it's oh well, they were really close and they really weren't supposed to be there, and their schedule was kind of bad and they kind of got exposed, and we'll see what happens to them next year. If they win, there's still probably going to be detractors, but if the New England becomes a Super Bowl favorite for next year and for years to come. And, suddenly Drake May is looked at a lot differently than some of his compatriots, no pun intended, in the league, right? He would you rather have Josh Allen's career or Drake May's career if Drake May wins the Super Bowl and Josh Allen still hasn't? Probably Drake May. Similarly with the Seahawks, like if they win the game, it's Sam Darnold. Look at this amazing comeback story, and Mike McDonald and all these guys uh that have uh that have overcome things like Cooper Cup winning a Super Bowl with a second team after being kind of let go by the Rams, and all these things. You just start the narrative will be, well, Seattle, I mean, they're in a division full of teams that have made it to the Super Bowl recently, like the Rams and the 49ers, and now Seattle's in that conversation. And is Sam Darnold a long-term answer? How do we look at Sam Darnold? Is he like a Joe Flacco who wins a one-off Super Bowl and nobody really thinks he's ever that good? Or, because look at Russell Wilson and Joe Flacco now. They're still hanging around the league as backups, but the reason they're still relevant in their late 30s is because they won a Super Bowl in their early 20s. Could that be Drake May or Sam Darnold? Maybe. I don't know. So there's a lot of expectations that are built off of what goes on in these next few games. Like I think the years of looking at five or six quarterbacks that could lead their team to a Super Bowl. I think that's gone. I think you got to start looking at 10 to 12 quarterbacks a year. You got to this year. I've my eyes have just been opened, right? And you've seen it started to build. Like last year, Washington made a run. The year before, in 2023, was it the who was it in the AFC that made an unexpected run? Oh, it's escaping me now. Was it Jacksonville or something? Oh, I can't remember. But even so, 2021, the Bengals made this unexpected run, and now it's the Patriots and the Seahawks. So, yeah, I think the NFL's been trending this way for a while. All right, so talking a lot about the quarterback, Sam Darnold, Drake May, both guys looking sort of with something to prove. Both guys drafted third overall, right? Weren't the top pick in their draft. It was Baker and Caleb Williams, who surprisingly both played for Lincoln Riley. I mean, think about all that. It's wild. The NFL rhymes in so many ways. Um, but but I think the keys to the game it's not really about the narratives, right? It's about what happens on the field for those 60 minutes or beyond. And and that's going to be what we're talking about next week. The big narratives about the franchise expectations and the Hall of Fame and the quarterback legacies and all this stuff is fun. It's great fodder for, the last week of January, the first week of February. But eventually, you're going to get to the point where the game's going to get played. And for New England, like I think in order for them to win, they have to get to Darnold, right? They have to confuse him. There's been a lot of discussion about the game in 2019 when he was caught on camera saying that he was seeing ghosts against the Patriots, right? If that guy shows up, New England's in really good shape. They're going to win the Super Bowl. Um, if they can't confuse him and he's able to make plays, especially on third down, one of the things that worries me as a Patriots fan is that on third down, the defense is going to start to wear down late, right? I remember this in Super Bowl 52 against Philadelphia. They started to get gashed late. Um, Now, hopefully, nobody is randomly benched in the Super Bowl, but I think um, I think New England, if they can stay vigilant on third down late in the game and not give up like a 3rd and 13 or a 3rd and 9 or even a 3rd and 7 if they have the lead late, and by late I mean the fourth quarter, then I think that will really help them, right? So it's can you confuse Sam Darnold and can you do it on third down? All right. I think that's one key. That's one key of the game. Second key of the game for New England is offensively they need to sustain drives, right? New England cannot do what they did against Denver or even against the Chargers. I think in the Houston game, they were a little bit better in the second half. They have to be able to win the game offensively as well. Like they cannot make this a Bryce Behringer game. Like the blueprint for the Patriots, I think they can win a game like in Super Bowl 53 against the Rams and they only won 13-3 or something. Like they could win that game, but I think it's unlikely that they're going to win a game like that. Um, I think for New England to win, they're going to need to have sustained offensive drives, at least three drives of 10 minutes or more, or sorry, of probably 7 minutes or more that account for points. If New England has three drives of 7 minutes or more that account for points, whether it's a field goal or a touchdown, honestly, I think that'll go a long way in helping them win the game. If they have five of those, I think there's a really good chance they win the game. Um, that said, though, one of the things that worries me about New England, and I'll get to it more when I talk about Seattle, is the score, right? What kind of game are we in late? But before I get to that, the third key for New England is their special teams, right? I just talked about how I don't want it to become a Bryce Behringer game. That would not be conducive for New England, right? The best thing for the Patriots would to be yes, you want your drives to end in a kick. You want it to be a punt, or a kickoff or a field goal or something. You do not want a turnover. Like obviously, the turnover battle goes without saying. Um, but they need to perform better on special teams than they have throughout the rest of the playoffs. Like Bryce Behringer, if he is called upon and you do get in a low scoring game, you need to be able to control field position. And if Marcus Jones scores a touchdown, I really like the idea of the Patriots win. Like that would be my dark horse prediction is if the Patriots win, it's because Marcus Jones scored a touchdown. All right. But as I was saying with Seattle, their three keys to victory are confusing Drake. They have to confuse Drake May, right? Much like the New England has to confuse Sam Darnold. I think both of these quarterbacks in their first Super Bowl start, there's going to be some jitters, right? But if Seattle with their coverages, they play a lot of weird coverages. They play read coverages. They play quarters on one side. They'll play cover two on the other. They'll mix up their coverages. This is something that they're going to do. That McDonald is going to do. If they can confuse Drake May and get him to be jumpy and get him to hold the ball longer than he needs to, I don't think the left side of the offensive line for New England is strong enough to hold up. And that would be a problem. That's like what we saw against Houston and Denver, and even parts of the game against Los Angeles. Is the pass rush got to May in a way that was detrimental because when Drake May sees the defense and he understands what's going on, he's a lot like Brady in that it's really hard to confuse him. But if you can confuse him, and the Bills did it late in the year, and certainly throughout the playoffs, he becomes a different guy. Second thing is motion. Just with Seattle on the other side of the ball, they put a lot of guys in motion. We saw New England struggle early in the first half against Denver with receivers in motion. I'm not sure why Sean Payton drifted away from it in the AFC Championship, but if Clint Kubiak is able to get some of these guys in motion, whether it's Cup or Bobo or even a JSN, then I think New England could be in a world of trouble because like as much as I like Christian Gonzalez, if he takes away, even if he's able to take away JSN, I worry about some of these tight ends because as much as I like some of these players on defense, and I don't think Seattle's tight ends are better than New England's, I think I think schematically Seattle can do a lot with motion that will leave tight ends open in the middle of the field. And that scares me a little bit because that's how Sam Darnold was able to play so well against the Rams. And the last thing that Seattle needs to do if they're going to win the game is they need to stop the run. One of the reasons why New England's offense gets into gear and gets comfortable is because they play. Josh McDaniels likes to have a complementary game plan. Like he doesn't, and I've been saying this all year. The game plan for the Patriots to win is not for Drake May to drop back 50 times like he did in week one against the Raiders. Like the best way for New England to win the game is if they're balanced offensively. Because suddenly guys like Mac Hollins or Hunter Henry or Austin Hooper, who and I think our tight ends have to be more involved, will suddenly be wide open if they can establish the run game, make Seattle respect the Ramondre Stevenson run game, and open it up. Like that is where Diggs comes into play. That's where Kayshon Boutte can stretch the field. There's a lot of things schematically that Josh McDaniels likes to do, and in order for New England to do that, they have to run the ball. So if Seattle can stop the run and make Drake May beat them, I'm not sure. As much as I like Drake May and I think he's an MVP quality quarterback right now, we'll find out tomorrow if he wins the award. As much as I like him in that spot, in a vacuum in the Super Bowl against this defense, I do not like that idea. And Seattle's defense is probably not as good as Houston's or Denver's, but probably right up there with the Chargers. And the Chargers were able to stop the run in that game and make Drake May throw a lot early, and he definitely looked uncomfortable. So for Seattle, they need to confuse Drake May with these coverages. They need to have their own motion on the offensive side of the ball, and then they need to stop the run. And then for New England, they have to get to Sam Darnold, especially on third down. They need to sustain their offensive drives, and then they need to make special teams plays that are timely. Um, I think some of the conventional wisdom is that this game is going to be won in the trenches, like a lot of the recent Super Bowls. If you think about Super Bowl, um, what was it, 55, with the Buccaneers and Chiefs, or even last year, when you see what the Eagles were able to do. And New England has some of these guys. Like they have got Milton Williams on their defensive front, and they've got Christian Barmore. So this game could be won in the trenches, and I think New England could attack Seattle, uh, Seattle's offensive line the same way Seattle's going to attack New England. So I think the offensive lines for both teams are a little bit of a vulnerability. So that will be a key probably for both teams. At the end of the day, the big question for me heading into the Super Bowl is one that I've heard from several others is Sam Darnold for real? I'll be honest, I've been critical of him. Everybody knows that. But if he is able to play to a level where he doesn't turn the ball over, think think Jimmy Garoppolo up until that last possession against Seattle, or excuse me, against San Francisco. Oh, jeez, against the Chiefs in 2020 or 2019, whatever year that was. Jimmy Garoppolo played okay, but he played good enough to win the game. Same thing with Tom Brady in Super Bowl 53 against the Rams. Tom Brady, just all he did was find Edelman, find Edelman, find Edelman all game long, and then he had one big pass to Gronk. Tom Brady didn't win the Patriots that Super Bowl um, on his own. Like he was certainly a key contributor. He's the greatest quarterback ever, but he made enough plays, right? If Sam Darnold can just give you a fraction of that without turning the ball over, um, it it could be close. And I've been critical of Sam Darnold. But if that guy's in there that still sees ghosts, then I think New England, if they can make him look as uncomfortable as they made Justin Herbert and CJ Stroud, and certainly Jarrett Stidham in the second half, then I think New England has a good shot to win the game. I look, New England's a 4.5 point underdog right now. My official pick, because I'm a Patriot fan, um, I naturally want to pick the Seahawks to protect my own fandom, and I said and I believe that I will, probably won't be as disappointed if we lose because during the Brady years there was so much pressure that this time it feels a little bit more exciting. Um, but all that said, I'm gonna go 27-20 Patriots. I predicted the Patriots to win by this score basically all three playoff games so far. So I'm gonna roll with it. I'm gonna go Patriots 27, Seahawks 20. And the last thing I'll say about the score, the higher the score goes, the less it favors the Patriots. So that's why I'd stick down to a low to mid scoring game would be best for New England. But we'll see what happens. 6:30 p.m. on Sunday. I'll probably record on Monday afternoon. I'll break it all down or win or lose. But until then, I hope you have a great rest of your week. Enjoy Super Bowl weekend. Follow us on socials at Homefield Pod, and like, share, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Um, we'll be back next week. I'm not going to do a merch plug this week. Follow us. You'll know where to find it. But we'll be back next time to break all things down Super Bowl and get ready for the Olympics. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Have a great rest of your week.